So with the launch of Fallout London, it's gotten me and a lot of other people kind of thinking of the future of Fallout, right? Because the Fallout show popped off earlier this year, blew up the Fallout franchise into a new stratosphere of popularity. I mean, more people were talking about it, playing it than ever before. And that was reflected in the sales numbers, in the concurrent player record numbers on Steam, for example. Even games like Fallout 76 saw a resurgence and popped off with crazy player numbers and engagement. Fallout is huge, and yet there really is not much in the works to take advantage of it. Fallout London comes along from modders that have been working independently of Bethesda. But other than that, they have Fallout 76 updates, and that's about it. Like, there really is nothing else. As of right now, the current schedule, or sorry, we've been talking about Fallout London, so schedule. The current schedule for Fallout was, of course, if this is our timeline, okay, we have Fallout 4, and that was in 2015. 2018, we get Fallout 76. And so just a few years later, not 13, 18. Just 3 years later, we get that. Then there is nothing. So just to put it in perspective, okay? So this, we get the Fallout show, which pops off super popular in 2024. Maybe it's easier if I just do 24. Now, what's next? As of right now, our understanding is that there is nothing else scheduled until Fallout 5. Todd has alluded to a couple of other things. There was a leak during the FTC hearings to stop the Activision Blizzard acquisition, for example, where there were documents leaked, not leaked, I think they were technically officially released, but in those documents, there were discussions of a Fallout 3 remaster, which might still happen, might not. When those documents came out, people saw them and obviously got really excited, because not just Fallout 3 Remastered was listed, but there were other projects listed too people got excited about. And Phil Spencer made a point to come out and say, don't get ahead of yourselves. Some of the things that we planned years ago are still in the works, obviously. Other plans that we had are no longer in the works. So just don't get ahead of yourselves, okay? With that, I think they might be walking it back. Like a Fallout 3 remaster, let's just be perfectly honest with ourselves. If all it is like some cranked up texture quality and that's basically it. Maybe they include, like, it's basically Game of the Year edition, so they include maybe some Creation Club stuff or whatever they do. I don't think that would go over that well, because it would be a relaunch of a game that honestly has not aged that well. If you've not gone back and tried Fallout 3 recently, it is a relic of its time. I mean, it is a 2008 first-person shooter open world adventure game, and as a result, it is burdened by all of the restraints of the time. So shooting-wise, the shooting mechanics are pretty rough. Even back in 2008, if you go back to some of those like reviews, people are calling out the shooting as being pretty rough, but it's a Fallout game and it's Bethesda, so it's fun anyways, right? But I think in 2024, it will feel all the more jarring, or if we get it, maybe they wait till 2028 to drop it. At that point, 20 years old, it will feel like a 20-year-old game. And if all they're doing is a remaster, that will definitely show. Because it's important to remember, they have phrased this in those documents as a remaster, not a remake. So this is not going to be like rebuilt with Fallout 4's tools or anything, even to that extent. It's like a Fallout 3 remaster. So I think it would be I don't think it'd be well received. So I wouldn't blame them if they canceled it. But we just don't know right now if that's still going to happen. And let's be honest, they're going to release it and it's still going to have all of the bugs it did before. It's going to run terribly. And then modders are going to have to find ways to fix that as well, because that's just what Bethesda does. So maybe we get a like 20, like maybe 2026, we see like a Fallout, we see a Fallout 3 remaster, but that's a big question. We don't actually know that. Okay. This might be canceled. It's up in the air. Other than that, what else is there that's even been rumored? Pretty much nothing. We've heard rumblings of possibly, you know, them doing like a Fallout New Vegas 2 or something, but that's all speculation, to be clear. Because there are rumors where somebody says, hey, a source told me this. And then there's speculation where it's just, I think it would make sense for them to do this, right? There's a difference between rumors and speculation and then reporting. Reporting is like a journalist who has credibility comes out and says, I've spoken with 3 sources and they all agree on this point, so I can report that this is happening, right? We're not even at rumors with these other Fallout projects, okay? It's still in the speculation phase where nobody has even come forward to say that this is happening. It's just speculation. And so what's been speculated? Maybe they do a Fallout New Vegas 2 or a remake of Fallout New Vegas. That would just make so much sense. Xbox would print money if they did that. And I agree. I think that would pop off and be super, super popular. But again, that hasn't even been like a rumor. That it's not even reached that point where somebody who works as an intern or as a writer or something has gone on NeoGAF or something and said, yeah, we're totally working on that. It's going to be super awesome. Nobody's even done that. Bear in mind, Fallout 4 leaked back in like 2011 initially, I think it was, with some scripts that went out. Might have been 2012. Starfield, we found out about Starfield back in the 2012-2013 era. I think it was early 2013 when they filed the trademarks for the name. And back then they actually thought it was going to be a DLC for Skyrim, which is funny to think of, that it would be like, nope, a decade later the game's going to come out, and it's very much not a DLC for Skyrim, but like we found out about it all the way back then. So if there were something Fallout related, one of the biggest franchises in the world, I think we would hear rumblings about it. It's the same reason why I just am not convinced we're ever going to see like a shadow drop of like a Bloodborne remake or something. I know some people think, oh, Sony's going to come out later this year and they're going to launch a Bloodborne remake with the PS5 Pro. I think if there were any rumblings of that happening, it would have been leaked 15 times to Sundown, and every journalist worth their salt would be begging to get that story out. So I just don't think it's happening. Maybe eventually they greenlight Obsidian or somebody else to make a remake of Fallout New Vegas or something. Honestly, I think a remake of Fallout New Vegas does better than Fallout 3 Remastered, especially because the show, if you haven't seen the Fallout show, let's just say there's a call to Fallout New Vegas at the very end of the show in the last episode. There's like we're going to go there. We're going to check it out. And it's very exciting, but I think that's why a remaster or remake of New Vegas makes way more sense than a Fallout 3 remake or remaster. If they were taking the show to Washington, okay, that makes sense. But yeah, I don't think they're doing Fallout 3 anymore. It just doesn't make sense. So maybe this is Fallout 3 or it's New Vegas, but right now it's just total question marks. We don't know. There's not even rumors about it. It's just speculation. If anybody has rumors or has had sources that have come forward to talk about it, I have not come across them, and like I do this for a living, so I just would be shocked if there are, reputable sources coming forward and saying this stuff. The extent of stuff I've seen is like your stereotypical, somebody posted on 4chan and said, my dad works at Microsoft and told me this. It's just not what I would consider credible. So other than that, what's the next official launch? Like, what's the next official thing on the calendar? Well, as of right now, the only thing that is like officially expected would of course be a Fallout 5. And if we break it up, let's just be like completely clear about this. BGS has long dev cycles, especially crossing console generations. They really struggle with pumping out cutting edge tech, and it takes them a bit longer than other studios. So Bethesda is expected to release The Elder Scrolls 6 probably sometime around 2028, I think is the consensus most people have said. If you look at, Shattered Space, they're working on that. They're working on a bunch of other projects and things, but they've started work on Elder Scrolls 6. It took them a very long time after they finished Fallout 76 in 2018. It took them 5 years to get Starfield out the door. So if you then say 5 years from their next big project, which is Shattered Space, let's say 5 years from later this year when they launch that puts it in like 2028, 2029, most likely. So if we're being generous, I think we would say 2028 is when the Elder Scrolls 6 launches. And again, that's like probably, I would guess 29, but maybe even as late as 2029. Do you feel old yet? So we're in that range. And after that, they probably do a big DLC expansion or something for Elder Scrolls 6. And that leads into 2029 to 2030 when they start work on Fallout 5. Give them another 5 years. That puts this somewhere in the range of, not 20, of 2034 to 2035. Does that not just break your brain? That means, according to their official roadmap as we understand it, Fallout 5, they plan to release 20 years after Fallout 4. 20 years. Is that not horrifying? And this isn't even like that complicated or scandalous a prediction. The only way that this accelerates is if Bethesda expands significantly and basically creates 2 strike teams that are the size of their current team that work on huge games like this at the same time. Is it possible they do that? Sure, but we saw what happened when they tried to work on 2 projects at the same time before, because they worked on Fallout 76 while they were working on the early dev of Starfield, and it just didn't really cleanly work. There's been interviews and stuff with devs that left the studio right after Fallout 76, largely because they were frustrated at how poorly managed the company was when it scaled up to that size. So I just would not expect it to go that well. But yeah, I mean, this is what we're looking at. As of right now, again, the only stuff that is like confirmed is we're going to get more seasons of the Fallout show, and we're going to get more updates for Fallout 76. But the Fallout 3 / maybe New Vegas remaster, remake, whatever, that's all still very much up in the air. Like, we really don't know much about that at all. It's possible that this stuff ends up happening, but it's also possible that it's all been canceled or they just don't have the resources to do it. So this is all just a big maybe. And if you just scratch that out, then we're left with the Fallout show launching in 2024. We're getting updates to Fallout 76. Elder Scrolls 6 launches 2028 to 2029. And then 5 years after whenever that launches, assuming that they get right to work, it might be 5 to 6 years if they also do big DLC packages for it. You're then looking in the mid 2030s. Does that make sense? I don't think so. I mean, you are sitting on one of the biggest IP in all of gaming, and after the show, pop culture, and you're going to sit on it from today for a decade? What? How does that make any damn sense at all? If you are given a golden ticket to just print money, how on earth do you sit on it for that long? That's why I don't think they would honestly sit on it for that long. I have to imagine that everybody around Phil Spencer is screaming, dude, greenlight something Fallout related. It doesn't even have to be that good. It could be an 8 out of 10. It could be a 7 out of 10. It could be a 6 out of 10. Just something Fallout related to capitalize on some of this excitement and hype. Just something. Like, they own Bethesda. It's not like Bethesda is a contractor or somebody that they publish games for. They now own Bethesda. They own the rights. If Phil Spencer wants to come along and say, Todd, I know you're sensitive about other companies getting your licenses and IP and stuff, but yeah, we need to do this. We need to do this. So we're going to give it to another team. Like, Todd has no say. Todd's like, okay, we got to do it. I don't get the final say here. So I think it just makes too much sense. If I were them, I would dream scenario. Okay, you ready? What did Sven Vinky say, the head of Larian, the guys behind Baldur's Gate 3? What did he say was one of the only IP he was interested in working on besides their own? Fallout. I think what you do is you go to Larian. They already said they're working on their own IP again. But so this is still like a decade out. But I'm telling you, go to Larian, cut them whatever check they want and say, hey, we need you to do a old school like CRPG style Fallout game. Do that. You can have the IP for that, go crazy with it, and the internet explodes. I really think the internet would explode. It would still be probably 8 to 10 years out before we actually get it, but still, I think that would pop off. More immediate help, I think what you could do is you could go to Obsidian and you could, because Obsidian right now is working on Avowed, which is set to come out, later this year, I think? So they've got Avowed, and then probably next year or the year after, they have The Outer Worlds 2. So you could then go to them and say, after you finished Avowed, that team goes and either helps wrap up The Outer Worlds real quick, or you guys go and start work on a remake of Fallout New Vegas. I don't think you bite off more than you can chew and try to do a part 2, but I think you remake it with modern tools. So you have like fully open world. You don't have those weird multiple gates of areas within New Vegas where you walk through this gate, you get access to 5 buildings, then you go through another gate, you get access to 5 more buildings. I think you just do a full remake. I think that's what you do. And because it's coming from Obsidian, that gets a little credibility. It's like we finally got to return to our roots, and we've even expanded some of the dialogue and stuff. You could do all sorts of things. You know, people would eat it up, I think. I think you do that. That could reasonably be expected to come out maybe 2-3 years later. Give them a few years to put it together. That would mean that we're looking at maybe a 2028 release for a Fallout New Vegas remake. Then I think this is much more palatable. You at least are getting something big, a Fallout fix in the meantime, because frankly, there's a lot of people for whom Fallout 76 is just not interesting. Like, it's just not going to click with them. Because so far, when Todd's been asked about this, he just goes, well, we have Fallout 76. We've got updates going to that. So we have more Fallout content coming all the time. It's like people act like there's nothing for a decade, but no, we've got Fallout content all the time with Fallout 76. And he's not dumb. I'm sure Todd is aware that the types of gamers that love their single player stuff are not necessarily going to connect with Fallout 76, and they're not going to find that to be an adequate replacement, especially because Fallout 76 still is far from a perfect game. It's far from where I would consider a main entry in Fallout to be. But you know what's really funny about the potential for all of this? Imagine they do give Larian access to the Fallout IP, and then Larian comes along and makes that 10 out of 10 masterpiece Baldur's Gate 3 level Fallout game, but it's like Fallout, I don't even know what you'd call it, the Rockies or something. Like, it's a Fallout game set in the Rocky Mountains, and it's just huge and expansive with their same Baldur's Gate 3 style of design. I think you could actually get to a situation where that spin-off is definitively the best Fallout game ever made. With New Vegas, people say that, but then, Bethesda can point back and be like, well, Fallout 4 sold way better, and our review scores were higher on this one. Fallout New Vegas didn't launch with great review scores, and so actually, we think that we have the most definitive one, but it's up for debate. I think if Larian took it, they could run with it and release definitively the best Fallout game ever made. And I think that would be a problem. I really think that would be a problem for them. I don't think they would just go along with it. Like, I'm sure Todd is pulling out every stop to keep control of his baby, because imagine you've had your career defined by basically 2 franchises, by Elder Scrolls and by Fallout, launching those and getting them going on console and introducing them to a hugely wide audience. And then you hear rumblings that the executives above you want to take that franchise away from you and give it to another studio who is one of the most critically acclaimed studios of all time, while you have been struggling to get critical acclaim on any of your projects in the last decade. I'm sure that messes with you. You're like, they're going to take my baby and they're going to show how, like, I think it would be embarrassing. I think you're right. I think you're right, Farfree. I think that would be embarrassing for Bethesda to be like, okay, well, Larian just did a 10 out of 10 Fallout CRPG, and then they launch Fallout 5 and it's okay, or even pretty good, but it's like an 8 out of 10, kind of like Starfield. I think that would be humiliating in some ways, because it's like a lot of gamers would then be like, okay, well, Larian is now like the definitive the definitive Fallout studio, you know, and just leave it there. Just like with Interplay, Fallout taken away. Yeah, I think that would be a concern. Like, honestly, if you were known for one thing, or for, in this case, two things, and then one of them gets taken away and handed to somebody that does it way, way better, like, I think that would pop off. I think that would pop off, you know? Oh, man. But anyway, with all this, I point this out just to break your brain and make you feel sadness, because it's going to be a very, very long time before we get anything big and official from Bethesda or from Fallout in general. And it's just too bad. So the franchise is doomed, is what you're saying. I think the franchise has been, for no good reason, put on ice effectively. Like, the franchise is being treated in the same way it would be if it were the last entry were a colossal flop. And Fallout 4 wasn't really a colossal flop. Fallout 76 should have been in some ways, but ended up popping off and doing well in the long term, which is great. But I think the way that they're just not going to touch it, seemingly for a decade, is just bizarre. It's just a waste, you know? Would I prefer they scrap the Elder Scrolls 6 and start working on Fallout? Well, no, because Elder Scrolls fans have also been stuck waiting for another game. We're complaining because Fallout 5 is probably 20 years away from its last entry. But Elder Scrolls 6, when it launches, most likely in like 2028, that will be 17 years from their last entry. So you can't really complain either which way. It's just, this is what happens when a studio that makes one game at a time effectively takes anywhere from 5 to 7 years to put games together, and then they introduce a third IP that nobody really asked for in the form of Starfield. And it's like, okay, well, now everything is heavily shifted. You know, it's just, that's what happens. I just don't understand how they can't develop two games at the same time. It's all about management. Like, I've spoken to people who have worked and currently work at Bethesda Game Studios, and the common complaint is that they feel like the team has already grown too big for its own good, and the management doesn't know how to handle it. And so a lot of time gets wasted on stupid stuff if it were managed better and more efficiently. And I think that that's really at its core the problem with BGS, is I don't think you can just scale it up. It's not as simple as, well, just hire 300 more devs. Just do that and then make two games at the same time. It's like, there's a lot more going into it than that, you know? He said it might be good for to make fans wait. What does that tell you about Todd? Well, I mean, I think to a certain extent, part of the reason people get so freaking hyped for Bethesda stuff is because they make you wait. They're not trying to do a constant drip of content. They understand that, you know, distance makes the heart grow fonder. And over time, people get those rose-tinted glasses put on, and they start to forget how things were. Like, I have no doubt that in like 5-6 years, people will look back and be like, well, Starfield really was very impressive. It just got too much hate. Already people are doing that. You know, Starfield was fine. It was just mediocre was the real problem. But like Fallout 4 launched with all sorts of issues and bugs and performance issues and stuff. And I just think that over time people do that naturally. And Todd gets that. He took my thing.